Do your best. Let's go. Lions on 3. 1, 2, 3. Lions.
Oh my God! Victory Sunday.
The Giants look at their schedule and they go, "Oh, the Detroit Lions," and they put the big W, right?
Right.
It's folks. It's everybody that is on the screen right now that is what makes this special, because this organization has been so bad for so long. Yet here we all are on a Sunday night at 7:00, chopping it up about this football team, because winning 3 in a row and getting this done for the first time since 2017, and like Mark said, having some momentum for this fan base.
When we played against the Patriots one game on Thanksgiving, I had a pretty good game too, and it was just the atmosphere is just different. It's just there's just everybody's ready. You get a chance to wear the throwback uniforms. It was just fun.
I think it's a mixture of both. I think you got to have a good program, but I think the city, the way it's viewed nationally, like the people in Detroit, the business people, the money makers, the marketers, they got to market Detroit different nationally.
And here we go. We have Walter Stringer with Lions Avenue. We also have, come on, Spirit of Detroit.
You too.
We rehearse this. And and when we bring everybody together, we also have Mark Orem and John Maakaron with Sports Illustrated, All Lions, Detroit Lions Lowdown. When we bring everybody all together, we have the Lions Guys podcast. How the hell is everybody doing today?
What's going on, everybody? What's going on? How's everybody feel?
I feel great. I predicted the score. I predicted the score. I knew this was going to happen. I'm going to remember, guys, this is a live interactive show. So the faster you type, as our expert podcasters are speaking, they will be sure to answer your questions or mention you in a comment when they're doing their take. We have a special guest coming on at 8:00. Anthony Cannon, former Lion. He drafted in 2006. He played with Dan Campbell. Be sure to grab your notepad and write everything down so you can be kind of cool at the water cooler. You can put your arm up there and say, "Oh, I know this," because listen to these guys. These guys are all great. John, how the hell are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It feels like the city of Detroit feels like the Lions are 4-9 and not 9-4. Look, I know it's been a rough couple days, obviously, when you lose to the Bears. Not what you wanted. I understand the panic, and I think people sometimes struggle with understanding what, really to look at some perspective regarding where the Lions are at. It's a good football team, but I definitely respect those that are looking at the Lions and critiquing what's going on. When you look at a football team, when Dan Campbell says, "Hey, I want this football team to be playing their best football in December," and first couple opportunities that you see, that Bears game, far too many mistakes, far too much in regards to not executing, especially in the second half when it was targeted. So I look at this football team and I say, yeah, they're 9-4, but there's a lot of warts that could be exposed when you're trying to make a playoff push. I thought for sure, okay, after kind of seeing the season, okay, they're probably not a Super Bowl team, but if they keep playing the way they've been playing, we're not going to get that home playoff victory like everybody wants. I think the worst case scenario is if the Lions host a playoff game against the Rams or the Cowboys or the Vikings and end up losing in front of the home crowd. I understand the concerns. It's still a good football team, but man, I'm concerned that what we saw against the Bears, there's a lot of warts that were exposed.
Yeah, man, I still kind of feel the same way, guys. Orm's Forum. What's going on, guys? Mark Orem. My level of concern is rising. Losing to the Bears, losing to the Green Bay Packers at home on Thanksgiving. No, well, not Thanksgiving, but just losing at home to them, Thanksgiving, whatever it was. Two inferior teams, I think, to the Detroit Lions, I think raises a huge level of concern. And we haven't been playing good football, I think, for past 5-6 weeks, really. Since that Baltimore debacle, man, it looks like everything's getting a little bit figured out by other teams with the Detroit Lions. And my level of concern is high right now. It's nice to be 9-4. Don't get me wrong. Don't want to be I don't want to be a stickler here though. But there's some warts, like John said, and they need to be covered up really quick. I don't know how we're going to do this. This is a big game coming up on Saturday night. Do they want this? This Broncos team is probably one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. They've won, 6 out of the last 7 games, whatever they've won. And they're a good football team, man. They have some holes too as well. Don't get me wrong. They had a lot of problems at the beginning of the year, and I think they still do have some problems on that team. But, we got a quarterback here in this city that's trying to get a big contract, and he has not played up to snuff. I don't think for at least the past 4 or 5 weeks. He's been awful. The defense has holes. There's some concern going on in Detroit, man, but hopefully we can cover this up, get a win this weekend, and hopefully lock up a playoff spot.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it. I'm telling you, I've received every threat known possible to man, telling y'all about golf from the Kansas City game, from the off season, and now I'm just basking in it. I know my team is still going to win the division. They're going to eke it out. They still got some bums to play. I think they beat Minnesota, and we get in the playoffs. But this game is going to be a big game this week. I would like to see the running game. I would like to see Money Montgomery attack the middle where he can against the Denver Broncos. And I would like to see a rebound from Jared Goff. See, what you fans do is y'all start this apocalypse now stuff, and then you disappear as soon as Goff does something good. Now, I've always hated Goff, and I can attest to that. I can stick with it. I'm consistent, very consistent. I'm as consistent as freaking Goff being bad. But I will say that if he plays like a duck not tomorrow, but Saturday, oh man, you might as well kiss that 45-50 million goodbye. You might as well. I told Walt this yesterday on his channel. I said, Jared, you better play for every game like it's 6.5 million on the line, because you got 7 games to the Super Bowl. And if you divide that into 45, you got 6.5 million reasons to play out your mind. You better lose your mind and just play out your mind, okay? And I'm very confident that he won't do that. And the Hendon Hooker age will start. And then we can actually see some progress from the quarterback position. So loving my life right now.
Well, Avery just said a lot. I don't bask in the glory as much as he does. He's pretty happy about it. I really do want to see the team win. Not to say that he doesn't. He kind of wants to see Goff. He wants to be right. We all like to be right. I feel him about Goff. I've never been the biggest Goff fan going back to when he was with the Rams. I'm a firm believer in guys being who they are after 4 or 5 years of play. You don't see quarterbacks too often, aside from maybe who was it? Rich Gannon with the Raiders have a second career and turn out to be a completely different guy on the second half of his career. But nonetheless, man, this team has not looked good since Baltimore. I think when you're winning, once one team, all it takes is one team to beat you and put the blueprint out there. If you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, what they went through with the 49ers a couple weeks ago, demolishing them, Dallas turns around a week later, does the same thing, puts them right under the curtain, under the mat. So good teams find a way to rebound from that and rebuild on the fly. We expect Philly to eventually get back to form. And if you're Detroit, it's kind of scary because this team has not gotten back to form since that Baltimore beatdown. Now, we can look at some of the games they've won. They beat up a lowly Raider team who eventually went on to fire their head coach and bench their quarterback pretty much for the rest of the season. You beat the Chargers. At that point in time in the season, we all felt that was a good win, possibly. But how good does that Charger win actually look now? You know, the Chargers went on, a 3 or 4 game losing streak after that loss to us. We beat Kansas City. We can question how good is that Kansas City win now, considering how bad the Chiefs have struggled this season compared to their form. So, yeah, like I said, it's weird because you look at Chris Olave with the Saints had a big game. Keenan Allen with the Chargers had a big game. DJ Moore didn't go well over 100 yards, but DJ Moore got enough touches and was pretty much knocking on the door at 100 yards in both games against us. I was disappointed because after the first loss, not the first loss, but after we beat the Bears a couple weeks ago, after playing pretty much 5 minutes, 56 minutes of bad football, playing 4 minutes and winning that game. Going into the Thanksgiving game, I said to myself, there's no way this team plays any worse. And here we are 3 games later, going into a game against a red-hot Denver Broncos team who just lost a tough game to the Texans this past weekend, saying the same thing, that there's no way this team can play any worse. Well, it's possible because I think the Broncos have some pieces in play to really give us some issues. If this team can't figure out a way to slow down a hot Cortland Sutton right now, Jerry Jeudy, Russell Wilson is still Russell Wilson, not the old Russell Wilson, but he's still a very solid quarterback in this league right now. You got a head coach in Sean Payton who knows AG, who knows Dan Campbell, pretty much from top to bottom, exactly what they want to do. He pretty much taught those dudes everything they know, so it's going to be interesting, man. And then another big matchup, you're looking at our wide receiving core versus that Denver Broncos secondary. So not to dive too deep into who wins or whatnot, but I pretty much believe the passing game on both sides of the field is going to decide that game on Saturday.
All right, let's keep it in perspective because I think this is the talk that people are having. The chat recognizes it, and I think a lot of people that defend Jared Goff talk about it too. You look at it and you say, what helps make Jared Goff successful? And that's when the complete game is purring, the offensive line giving him time. You can't go into a game without your best center in Frank Ragnow and expect the offensive line just to rebound. The offensive line is not giving him enough time. He's facing a lot more pressure. And quite frankly, when he faces pressure, it's definitely the worst thing for the Detroit Lions because he's just awkward. He doesn't have the natural skill to just evade the rush, to find the open target, to extend the play. He just doesn't have it. So for the Lions, and it's true, is that what's concerning is you would think at this point in the season with Ben Johnson and that leadership and the talent that they have, that they would be ascending, not regressing offensively. And you look at the mistakes, they can't figure out how to score in the third quarter. And you recognize for Jared Goff to be successful, the offensive line has to protect him. And Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell, I mean, he rebounded, Sewell did, against the Bears after a rough game before. But Taylor Decker, obviously his injuries are starting to pile up, and that's Jared Goff's blind side. Decker had a real bad performance against the Bears. And you recognize, too, that, okay, the other side is getting paid, too. The Bears, obviously being in the division, they understand probably among more than anybody else kind of how to handle the Lions in terms of understanding that they're in the division. So they've seen what Jared Goff does not do well. And they figured out, okay, we're going to play zone defense and we're going to take away Amon-Ra St. Brown. Let's go, see what you got. And in the weather, in the elements, the Lions just were not crisp at all. Jared Goff deserves some blame. But I think a lot of blame also needs to be looked at with Ben Johnson in terms of not being as aggressive as he needed to in his play calling. I think he got to run happy in the second half. And I think also at the same time, the offensive line is not living up to the status of being the number one unit. Obviously, injuries play a part, but I think Goff too also has to step it up. But I think that there's a myriad of reasons why Goff is struggling, and it's unfortunate. That's why people want to clamor for a Hendon Hooker. As crazy as that sounds, is they see the potential to evade the rush. They see the potential that he could have to get Jameson Williams more involved, and it's crazy because I do think Goff should take a lot of the blame for Jameson Williams not being able to shine. I mean that throw he made to Jameson was embarrassing. And it's a struggle, but at the same time, I think that Goff has to figure out with his offensive line and the offense how to get back into rhythm. And I think at Ford Field, in the comfy confines of Ford Field, you'll start to see Goff play better. They can't play as bad as they did against the Bears, but it's not all Jared Goff's fault.
Yeah, like I don't want to sit here and put all the blame on Jared Goff either. The O-line situation is rough right now. Frank Ragnow being out it hurts big time. You got the miscommunication on the O-line. You got Colby Sorsdal in there, Abel Sika. You got guys switching around. Decker looks like he's banged up every week. I think he's actually let like 6 sacks in the past like 4 or 5 weeks or something like that. So he's a big determinant right now to why Jared Goff's not succeeding. But this is Jared Goff's team. He is the captain of the offense. He is the guy trying to get a $50 million contract. And then it comes down to stuff like with Jared Goff, you have to be smarter with the football. I get it. There's pressure on him. We have a bunch of injuries on the O-line, but he's the one making the decisions. He's the one getting strip sacked. He's the one throwing bad throws. Okay, it just has to be smarter with the football, and he's not doing that. He literally has like 13 turnovers since like week 7. 10. He has 10 turnovers in 4 games. That's absolutely unacceptable for a guy that is trying to get a 45 plus $50 million contract. And right now he doesn't deserve that. Jared Goff is a guy that I did not like this trade from the beginning. I hated it in 2021. I warmed up to it. It took me about a year. It took me about a year and a half to finally go, okay, look, he's playing good football. Things need to be perfect around him, though, for this to happen. But he was playing at a really high level, not an elite level, but I think it's fair to say that he was playing at a top 10 level. But he's been such a roller coaster of a ride here, not only here, but in LA. He started off hot, boom, then it went down, then McVay got rid of him. He comes here. It was the same thing. He started shooting downwards, going upwards, shooting downwards. It was a roller coaster situation with Jared Goff. And now he's regressing again. So, you just have to control the football. You have to secure the football. He's not the only reason why we're losing football games. This defense is a joke. Okay, let's just get that right out of the way. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit. But Goff, he just needs to be smarter with the ball, and everything has to be perfect around him in order for him to be successful. And does that sound like a $50 million contract to you, Jared Goff? Come on, man. It's not. I just don't think he deserves that money right now. And if he's asking for that type of money, I think it's a problem. I think it's a huge problem. But he's not the only reason why we're losing football games. It's just ignorant to say, obviously. But he's not playing at a high level right now. He's not playing at a guy that deserves a big contract extension. He's just not. And if people are clamoring for guys like Hendon Hooker and stuff like that right now, this kid just started practicing with the team. He's not ready. I can't see them coming in. They're trying to make the playoffs. They're not going to put a rookie in week 15 to try to make the playoffs. It'll go to Teddy Bridgewater if anything happens. God forbid anything happens. I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is an answer either. So we don't want to go that avenue. We just need Goff to be smarter with the football, man. And hopefully he does that this week.
I think it's easy to say Goff is off. But I've said it so many times. It's not just him. Let me play sacrificial lamb or whatever, devil's advocate. At the end of the day, the team is playing bad, and I feel like this team is going to go as far as Jared Goff goes. But you made a good argument that the defense is playing bad as well. I mean, when I look at the offense right now, if I look at the all 22, and I look at the actual game, what I'm seeing a lot of teams are doing, a lot of teams are jumping these routes because Jared's not, we don't have a lot of pump fakes. We don't have a lot of miscues. We're going to hit our spots. We're going to sit down in our zones. We're going to get into that middle mesh or that middle seam. Whatever we're going to do is we're just going to get into the middle and just stop. We're going to have a lot of spacing concepts on film, and we're just going to stop. And a lot of teams are jumping those routes now. They know it's coming. They know it's not going to be a double move up top. So that plays into the defense's hand. And then when you do see a double move up top and Jameson goes deep, they're literally playing inside position, daring you to throw the ball because they got the outside, using the sideline as a defender. So I really like that teams have caught up to Detroit because now it's time to see the greatness of a Ben Johnson. And now it's time to see a lot of teams wanted to give him a coaching job of one season of miraculous work, and, but now it's time to see how you can one up everybody else. Because I see that with the guy in Miami, but I don't see that with you. See, the guy in Miami can go one up anybody. You, Ben Johnson, I don't think you can do it. So now you have to adapt your offense. And I'm not going to use Jared Goff as some type of like blame for you because his play calling hasn't been great. He's gotten too cute. He's gotten too flavorful. It feels like he looking at the offense like a bunch of fruit snacks, and he just saying, I don't know. It doesn't seem in sync. And what I'm seeing from the offensive line is atrocious, right? Owasika has 0 sacks, believe it or not. A guy that came off the practice squad has 0 sacks. Has he been a problem? Absolutely. But the dude who's the most problematic is our first-round pick from 5 years ago? Unacceptable. So we got Sewell. We got this bum from Ohio State. And I know he's played great, but I've never liked him. I never liked him at the left tackle, but it's just all bad right now. Schematically, it's bad. From a play calling perspective, it's bad. And from a Jared Goff perspective, it's awful. But I think they can really turn the corner, and the defense of Denver is the one to do it against. And you can do it with the run. They've allowed almost 1,000 yards on the ground this season. You can do it. Nick Bonito is questionable. Like, this is the defense to do it against. Yes, you got Patrick Surtain. Yes, you have Murray. Yes, you have Simmons back there. But at the end of the day, you don't want Goff throwing too much anyway. I think now you're comfortable with putting that Jared Goff as elite stuff in the back burner. Just trying to make the playoffs and get our little division win. You on mute.
You're mute, bro.
That's me always showing respect to the rest of you guys. Personally, I think Lions fans, certain Lions fans for that matter, are waiting to see Goff ascend to a level that he can't get to. And, there's nothing wrong with someone having the ceiling. I personally believe Goff been reached his ceiling. Sean McVay realized what his ceiling was. They were able to reach a Super Bowl with him. We saw what they had around him with the Rams, with the running game, and the defense, and how they were able to get there, and what they were able to do when they finally got there. They ultimately failed under him. He had a very poor Super Bowl performance, but they were able to bring in a different type of quarterback, different style of quarterback, a bigger arm quarterback, a quarterback who Sean McVay can open his playbook up with, and we saw what happened. 41 touchdown Super Bowl victory under Stafford. So I think Lions fans, even though we haven't reached the Super Bowl ever, we're in a situation right now where this could be a potential crossroads for some hardcore Goff fans and for some Lions fans who can't stand Goff. Can we break through that ceiling with him? I think that's the main question. There's some fans who feel like, well, you know what? The Rams got there with him, and if we just put X, Y, Z, and P, Q, and S with him, he'll be just fine. That doesn't work. And I think there's really no hardcore history of it working. A lot of people like to go back to Trent Dilfer. And my thing is this, and he's the only real example. If Trent effing Dilfer is your comparison for Goff, we can win. You don't have to win with a guy who's not a superstar because the Ravens won with Trent Dilfer. He's better than Trent Dilfer. But if that's the only comparison, that right there alone is a problem. And there's nothing wrong with, I know a lot of people are fearful of losing him because you don't know what you're getting after that. But if you want to win and you want to consistently be a winner, you can't be fearful. Scared money don't make no money. And if you look around the league, all of the teams who win aren't afraid of anything. Andy Reid had 0 issue with winning 11 games with Alex Smith, making the playoffs, and staring across the sideline on the other sideline and seeing Andrew Luck, who actually threw the Colts out of that game, then threw the Colts back into the game and winning. And I mentioned that to a few people, I think that was Andy Reid's epiphany moment, where he realized, okay, you know what? I got to get me one of those type of guys. And look at Andy Reid. Reid has been around plenty of elite quarterback play. You've got to have that guy, especially in this day and age in the NFL. You look at how athletic these DNs are, these linebackers are, these D tackles are. Quarterbacks like Goff are a complete dinosaur right now. And if you're going to be a non-mobile quarterback in the pocket, you for damn sure better have an elite arm. or elite intangibles, elite brain power. Like, I don't want to call him a bad quarterback. He's a good quarterback. But the problem is this defense hasn't been good. It hasn't been as bad as it was last season. They've been way better against the run. But for people to act like just a little bit better production from the offense and we wouldn't have won a couple of those other games is crazy. This is where the elite quarterback comes into play. Now, when we were winning and Goff was putting up those safe numbers, because they weren't great, sexy numbers, he was putting up safe numbers. And normally, when a quarterback puts up safe numbers and his team wins, people automatically propel him into the MVP role. But you're looking at what, 21 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and it's been a down season for quarterbacks across the league overall. Those aren't elite numbers. Those aren't even Pro Bowl numbers for that matter. So, like I said, I just feel like there's a large amount of this fan base who's terrified to let Goff go or move on from Goff because they don't know what they're going to come up with after that. But this is a team right now that is still young as hell. If you choose to not give Goff 45, 50 million, you have the ability to keep on building this team around Hendon Hooker. And we don't even know if Hooker's the answer. Let's be honest about it. By the time this team is really seriously ready to compete in another 2 years or 3 years, and I talked about this with Avery a few times, my gut feeling is that when this team is really seriously ready to contend, there will be a different quarterback leading it. I don't even honestly believe it's going to be Hendon Hooker. In another 2 or 3 years, there could be a different guy.
All right. This is my guy. Anthony Cannon played for the Detroit Lions. He was drafted in 2016 or 2006. Played with Calvin Johnson. Played with Dan Campbell. Talk about it a little bit, brother. What do you got going on there, Anthony? What do you got going on?
Oh man,
How you been doing?
I've been doing all right, man. I'm just here in Toronto. Headed back to the States. Here in January, I'll be coming back there for extended amount of time. But yeah, I've been here for the last 12 years, man. Just training athletes, coaching football here, developing players, and trying to help the young athletes chase that dream of playing at the next level.
So, John, take it away here. I'm going to go and produce again here.
Yeah, absolutely, Anthony. I'm just curious. Have you been keeping tabs a little bit on this? Obviously, this Lions team. You look at it; it's real interesting too because it's a team that is on the rise. It's still in a rebuild, but this fan base is clamoring for what we haven't had, obviously. And how hungry this fan base is, and how they want desperately to win a playoff game, and how they want to be able to cheer on this Lions team at Ford Field and have success in the postseason. And they started off strong, but as of late, you can see the defense is not exactly where it needs to be. And Dan Campbell called the last game undisciplined. Not something we want to kind of hear going into December, because we all see NFL teams that start on the climb. They want to be peaking in December. What's your sense of the Lions team? Have you been paying attention to what's been going on this season, especially with Dan Campbell and what he's been able to do with the franchise?
Yeah, man. I've been following the Lions. I mean, that's my team, man. I mean, win or lose, they're the team that drafted me and gave me a chance to play the NFL. So that's my squad, man. But this year, I've been a little bit skeptical, I'd say, from a defensive standpoint, particularly when we play running quarterbacks. We saw it back when we played the Baltimore Ravens. Jordan Love, he gives us fits. And then also you see it with with Fields out there in Chicago, man. And I just think that defensively, to your point, we have to be able to stop giving up big plays. I think that's one of the main things right now that kind of shoots us in the foot is the amount of explosion plays that we give up defensively. And it forces the offense to go out there and be one-dimensional. And I don't think we're built to go out there and and have Jared Goff, throw 35, 40 passes. I mean, he can, but the more opportunities that he has out there, obviously he's had turnover problems these last couple weeks. But when you're getting into December, your run game needs to be something that you feature, I think. And when you're giving up points on defense, like big explosion plays where you're giving up quick touchdowns, you're forcing yourself to kind of get away from that. And which I think is our strength right now is an offensive line, which is starting to get back healthy. I mean, Montgomery, he's running the ball like a madman back there right now, and I really feel like we got to kind of get back to that, and um, give the defense a little bit of a rest. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I have to get your perspective. Obviously, you played under Coach Marinelli, and obviously in 2008, the team went 0-16. I just have to get your perspective. What was it like for you being a part of that? Because when you look at and you recap that season, obviously, would have paid attention deeply to that season. Obviously, it was a team that obviously would play well during stretches, but just always would end up falling short. It was a tough year all the way around, capped off by that final loss. What was it like being part of that season? I know Coach Marinelli, had his strengths at times, but in the end, it just didn't end up working out. I'm just definitely curious what your perspective was on that 2008 season.
Man, it was a grind. I'm not gonna lie. It was it was tough going in and week out, practicing every week, and just falling short. I think that year we lost. Games we lost that year were by 7 points or less. Some of those games, so you put in a lot of work week in and week out, and you go out there to battle with your teammates. You want to come away with the win, and unfortunately that year we just couldn't pull one out. But it's funny, man. The year before that, we started out the season 6-2. At the halfway point, we're 6-2, and we wound up losing, I think, 7 out of the next 8, maybe, and it kind of brings me back to that same mindset right now. Is we're as a team, they're not we're not able to finish in December, uh, and that's kind of been an ongoing trend. But I really feel like with the coaching staff that's there now. Dre Bly, who's someone that I played with as well, along with Kelvin Shepard. He's a linebacker coach there. He's he went to my high school. He played played at LSU. I went to Tulane University, so we have a connection. I think they have the right guys there, from a player standpoint and a staff to kind of pull it together. But these next few games are going to be a big test.
Yeah, no doubt it's going to be a big test. Curious with the panel as well, starting with Anthony. When you look at the Lions defense, a lot of talk about AG, a lot of talk about Aaron Glenn and his schemes and things like that. I look at it from the perspective of, I think the Lions are an offensive team. They put a lot of resources on offense. They're trying to develop with a lot of young cats on defense. And at times, I think the defense is maybe getting a little bit too much blame when you look at the offense at times, putting them in bad spots. I mean, Dan Campbell likes to go for it on 4th down, sometimes on the wrong side of the field. And when they don't execute, that puts a defense in a tough spot. And I think for AG, he's just trying to obviously make do with a bunch of young cats. You look at the secondary, obviously they don't have a true number one defensive back. You got young linebackers still developing with Alex Anzalone as the leader. I think that they're making do with what they have. I just think that for the Lions in today's NFL, it's really tough to be a top 10 defense. And from where they were last year, I don't think that it was realistic to expect them to go from the 32nd ranked defense all the way to top 5. But I think when you look at what they do well, they stop the run. They're physical. I do think at times when they don't force turnovers, it makes it a lot more difficult. They do give up a lot of big plays as of late. but I think the defense is on an upward trajectory moving forward with the young talent as Brad Holmes continues to help out. I think maybe we can all admit that him not adding another piece to help Aiden might be the detriment for this year. But I do think that when you look at Aaron Glenn, there is the making of a defensive philosophy. I just don't think that there's enough talent yet that has been out there. And when you lose Aleem McNeil, that's going to be a definite struggle. But I think AG is getting a little bit too much criticism. Yeah, there's some things that can be improved, but I think that that defense has some pieces that in a year or two might be able to show out a little bit more than they're doing right now.
Yeah, well, I to just sorry, but Bruce Irvin, he's a recent signee. We just signed him, and I think that he's going to add a lot of depth to that D line. He's another guy who I'm very familiar with. He went to my high school as well. So adding someone like Bruce Irvin, who's a veteran, he's played on a lot of teams, but he does add an additional, I think edge pass rusher with some experience, to kind of complement Aiden Hutchinson. So I think that could be a good addition late down the stretch here.
I'm willing to give AG one more year with clear weapons, clear indicators. You have Alex Anzalone, who's had a fantastic season, and even when Alex Anzalone was hurt for like one or two games, or I think it was one game really, but even when he was hurt, we saw Jack Campbell really emerge and have a great season. Now, we haven't put a first-round pick into a defensive tackle. We haven't put a first-round pick into a cornerback. And we see those are points of issues, points of contention. You've drafted 4 defensive tackles, and you got one with great production. Unusable. I don't know how to say his name, but he's not there. He's not showing up. His back again has been an issue. He didn't quite fit the scheme when you first drafted him. Aleem McNeil was a spot-on dog. Aleem McNeil is also okay. I think he's good. I think those numbers are a little bit inflated. But at the end of the day, I feel like, the players that you've drafted on that side of the ball aren't going to warrant AG getting fired. So when you bring in, the Terrell Suggs of the world, when you bring in the T-Sizzles, when you bring in the real dogs, that's when we can actually have a discourse about AG hire or fire. Because you can make a job like Saleh did out of the defense of the 49ers. Saleh made a job out of the defense of the 49ers, that defensive line that had 4 first-round picks on the line and played that Seattle zone. And then D'Amico Ryans came in, added a little more blitz to it, and you can make a job. So I think that the talent is the key, talent and technique, but also that 4-2-5, you got to get rid of that. We wanted to see less goofy zones. We got less goofy zones, and guess what happened? Down the seams, people getting lit up. So I think that Aaron Glenn, I'm willing to give him one more season. I'm also willing to give, Brad Holmes some time to find the actual right pieces in the game, because he's found some quality pieces on the offensive side of football. But we should be at least a top 15 ranked defense next season, because I remember making a video when we was top 8 and shutting down the run and all that stuff against those pretend teams. Everybody was cute. We're 2-2. But yeah, we played some pretenders in the beginning of the season, and now we see where the defense falls, and we can't properly fire him for that. But we have 3 seasons of the same thing. The only thing bailing him out is that we haven't invested.
Yep, I agree. How's it going, Cannon? I want to just touch on a couple things with the team that I have noticed. I do believe this team plays really tight on both sides of the football, and that goes a lot into this is something I don't know if it's by design, because a lot of things that we hear from Dan Campbell, head coach Dan Campbell, and his post game pressers and his pressers on Mondays are some of the same things we heard back in year one about the team not having a large margin of room for error. When one thing goes wrong, it kind of throws everything off. I think some of that goes into the fact that they don't have a lot of high end talent on the defensive side of the football. You can question some of it on offense as well. I believe Panay Sewell is probably their best overall player, even though I do believe St. Brown is on his way up there as well. But this is a team that plays really tight. They don't get a lot of easy touchdowns on offense. Even some of the worst offenses in the league, some of the worst teams in the league still get gimme touchdowns. And I make the NBA comparison to a team that plays half court basketball, doesn't get any easy baskets in rotation. Everything is just half court, hammer, 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 75, 77 point games. And when you play the way we play offense and you don't really attack teams outside the numbers on the perimeter, everything is so congested inside, and you want to run the ball first, run the ball second, which is by design how they're built. You need some gimme touchdowns. And when you don't get too many easy gimme touchdowns and everything is forced to be 11, 12, 13, 14 play drives, you're forcing the quarterback and everyone else to be perfect damn near all the time. Whether your offensive line is elite or not, they're not going to be perfect every single Sunday. And Cannon, as I know you pretty much know for sure, offensive lines break down. No offensive line stays healthy for 16, 17 games. That's just how it is. And
Yeah.
when one part of the defense or team, one position group breaks down or has injuries, some other group has to make up for that. And if you look at them on defense, it's no takeaways. This team is bottom half in the league in takeaways. I don't think the defense has been as bad as some people think it's been. They've held their water in some situations, but when you do give up a lot of yards and you will give up an occasional big play from time to time, it's rough. And then you counter that with the offense putting you in short situations, constantly having to contend with short fields. So I'm going to put it like this. I think defensively, if they can figure out a way to make more plays, and I want to ask you this because you played the defensive side of the ball. Is it really a defensive coordinator's job, or is it even his? Does he have any ability to generate turnovers? Because at the end of the day, you can put guys in the position to make plays. Guys are either going to make plays or they're not. Guys are either going to make plays on the football and take the ball away or they're not. Guys are either going to reach in, punch balls out, get strips, recover fumbles, get to the quarterback or they're not. And if you look at the Justin Fields, for example, this past Sunday, they were in position multiple times to get him for a loss. And guys just couldn't close the deal. So, in your opinion, as a former defender, what can they do to make bigger plays? Because at the end of the day, you can have a defense that's 20th, 21st, 22nd in yards given up. But if you're top 10, top 15 in takeaways, that right there can give you an extra 2 or 3 wins in the season. So, in your estimation, what can they do possibly to make more plays on defense?
I mean, I'd say it's a mentality, man. It's a mindset, and uh, first of all, it's recognizing that like you're bringing it up, that they're not creating those turnovers, and collectively just doing whatever they can, to generate those turnovers. Whether it's getting more hats to the ball, everyone trying to get to the ball and have an intent when they do get to the ball to punch the ball, rake it out. Kind of like that Chicago Bears defense back in the day with the Peanut Tillman punch. You got to kind of drill that stuff in practice, man, and so it becomes a habit. So from a defensive coordinator standpoint, I feel like that's something that you could do, to help create those habits. But from a X's and O's standpoint, I don't think there's any calls you can make to guess what's going to happen on a particular play and put someone in a position to be there to make an interception. When you look at the Chicago Bears defense, you got guys over there who are in position to make the play, and the ball's just going through their hands, right? So you can also make that point as well. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, you just got to make plays, man. And I've heard this over and over. we haven't really invested in the secondary when it comes to big name players over there in the secondary. So I think once you start getting those type of players of that caliber, then this would be a different conversation.
That was kind of what I
Yeah.
wanted to touch on too, because you played with a guy, a couple of them, matter of fact. Dre Block was a ball magnet. He
Yeah,
had it.
he,
Some guys
he
just have it. Glover Quinn was a ball magnet. Some guys
yeah.
just do it. Ed Reed, like some
Hmm.
guys, even a guy that we got to play against Saturday, and Justin Simmons, he's a ball magnet. Some guys just they study, they know their keys, they have the hands, they have the confidence to make plays.
Hmm. And you made another point. You said that they play tight, right? So on defense, when you have young players and you don't have the experience, you do everything by the book.
Hmm.
But sometimes, man, when you're a playmaker, you might just do something that isn't on paper the way it's supposed to be, but you just took a chance, right? And with experience, you're gonna know. All right, risk versus reward. Do I have the ability to take a chance on this? Can I undercut this? Do I have help over top? But if you don't really understand the defense, or if you're new to the defense, or you're not comfortable with the guys you're playing with, you're not going to take those chances as much. Particularly when you know that your offense has put you in a position where you're backed up, and you got to kind of hold your water so we don't give up a touchdown.
That's a great take.
Yeah. Yep. Anthony, I'm definitely very curious your thoughts, how close you are to paying attention to the draft and things like that, because you played in 2007 with really a talented defensive tackle in Sean Rogers, and he had 7 sacks, was always around the ball, forced 4 fumbles. And you look at the Lions, and they decided this year in the first round to go a little more exotic and get a running back in Jahmyr Gibbs. Many people were clamoring for Jalen Carter, obviously seeing the Georgia defense, but obviously maybe some intangibles, some things maybe away from the field, maybe the Lions didn't like. But I look at it and I say, if you could have potentially kept DeAndre Swift on a contract year, he might have been a little bit hungrier. You might have had an opportunity to get more out of him this. You're seeing what he can do in Philly. You get a guy, I mean, they say it, interior defensive tackles don't grow on trees, that can make plays and clog up the middle and maybe help out Aiden Hutchinson. What did you think of that pick? And do you think Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, are you looking at that Eagles defense and going, man, they took one of the best defenses in college and brought it to the big time?
Yeah, I mean, me particularly being from Georgia, from Atlanta, I'm a Georgia fan, so I'm always rooting for those guys. But yeah, I think you build your team from the inside out, and it's specifically on defense. If you want to have a stout run defense, having someone like that to anchor your defensive line is always, where you want to kind of start. But um, nonetheless, hopefully we can get someone in there this year, first round, or second round. But I think that'll be a big addition to the defense if we can get a big interior player inside that can be dominant, uh, to the liking of Jalen.
Yeah, I definitely got a question for you, Anthony. I definitely got a question, and you can answer. You can choose not to answer it. What was it like in that locker room, in that organization, in that building during the 0-16 season? What was Dan like as a player? What was going on there? What was Calvin like in that season? Because I know there were some guys that was downtrodden, and I know there were some guys that was picking us up. So just let me
Yeah,
know who were the guys that was picking us up, or however you want to answer it in the most
yeah.
politically
No,
correct
I
way.
mean Dan was a constant professional, man. He was one of the guys who you wanted to model yourself after if you was a younger player. He was always uh, always willing to help. He was always very vocal. But he was a grunt worker, man. So he was a special teams player, man. He played tight end. He did all the dirty work, man, and it shows in the way that he coaches his team. Um, and also with Calvin as well, man. Calvin that year, man, he battled a lot of injuries, but to see him continue to play through it all, even in the midst of 0-16 season, someone of that caliber, man, guys usually shut it down, but he really showed some resilience and showed that he was a leader in what type of career he was going to have after that, which he did. So it was tough. Like I said, coming in there every week, week after week, but it's definitely learning experience, man, and something that the organization I feel like has really worked hard to kind of overcome.
Yeah, it's really interesting now where they've come from. What are your thoughts on Dan Campbell as a head coach? I think that he's a player's coach. Man, I hope that you're starting to see potential now when the time comes with Brad Holmes. I think that they're going to add top-end free agents, one or two, when the time is right. But I think that Dan has changed the culture. And I think that you look at any type of head coach in this league, if you can get the players to buy in and you can get the respect of the players, I think that's step one. And you recognize that people really have a lot of respect for Dan Campbell and what he's brought and the energy that he brings. I think that he's the perfect representative of what the Lions are about: gritty and a tough football team that also has the potential to take the next step forward. And we also got to remember it's a young football team that's now learning to put this stuff together. And you recognize that teams are not. There's always a difference when you're the hunter and the hunted. Now teams know to come bring their A game against the Lions or they're going to get physically dominated. And I just think that Dan is working now to get these guys from a good team to a consistent playoff team. So I think Dan has a lot of intangibles to be a good coach. I think he's going to be around for a long time with what you see out of Dan Campbell.
So, Cannon, I had another quick question.
Yeah, I was just. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just want to say, so if we go back to the draft itself, how surprised were you? 'Cause I know Anthony Cannon was a defender. Most defenders want defenders. Most offensive players want offensive players. How surprised were you, if any, when they made the plays that they made on Jahmyr Gibbs and getting Laporta high in the second round? Did you believe that they were going to go defensive tackle? Would you have went defensive tackle? And with that being said, also with that question, are you surprised they didn't really address the defensive tackle position more?
I don't think he's there, Walt.
We ain't hearing none of that though. Well, how about you guys? You guys surprised they didn't?
Yeah.
But John, you were close. You were close to the situation.
Yeah, I think when I look at it, I am a little surprised that if it wasn't Jalen Carter, let's say for example, you didn't want that the noise surrounding him. I'm surprised that you invested a third round pick in Broderick Martin, trade up for him, and treat him as a project. I think that you could have added a solid player that was more ready to play. I mean, this is not college. You don't get a redshirt year. And so now what do the Lions need? They need help in the interior. Everybody, the chat's clamoring for more Isaiah Buggs. I understand he does do some things well in the run game and things like that, but the defense needs help. They need a run stuffing, aggressive, pass rushing, interior defensive lineman. Look, you lose Aleem McNeil, and what happens? Justin Fields in that first drive is running all over the place. You get 60 yards or so, and you're doing your thing. So I am surprised that I think what we're potentially seeing is the way some decisions that Brad Holmes made could bite the Lions, could come to haunt the Lions this year. In the future, I think that, we got to pay attention to the defense, but I do think the Broderick Martin pick and potentially not drafting an interior defensive lineman in the first round could hurt the Lions this year in the playoffs when you got some guys, some talented offenses that you're going to go up against.
Question is, did they miss the boat? Because I think
last
year's cornerback class was better.
Oh yeah, I just want a defensive draft.
You want them to draft
I just
more
want a
this year.
Defensive draft. The thing about it is this maybe there's some method to the madness. Maybe there's a method to the madness. And maybe we wanted the offense to get set up, get ready, be a year ahead of the defense. and that way we can help with re-signing, and the future looks bright all the time because the offense is all those guys are ahead, and we bring along these guys that are, I don't want to say bottom dwellers. I just want to say like we bring along some young guys that and then defensive players come at a premium, like defensive ends, defensive tackles. Now you're seeing defensive tackles get up there, get franchise tags that are up there. Corners again, Ramsey got $20 million. I think the cornerback class was a little better, but people like Deonte Banks and Forbes, they've struggled. They've had successes, but they've struggled. And I think that next year's class is going to be very good. And I think that there's going to be a more parity in the defensive. I'm the only one here. I think there's going to be more parity with the defensive line and the defensive coaches in the draft. We might see one offensive player taken off the board for the Lions, and I think that might be a wide receiver. So I just feel as though it's time to just like really devote all the bag to the defensive side of football and give people no excuse.
Yeah. All right. So we are. Oh, sorry. We are in the last quarter of this season. We go in quarter. First two quarters were pretty good until Jared Goff went on a Halloween celebration with that beautiful girl of his. So what I want you to do, John, if you could do this for me, you're in the locker room. You say, okay, say Coach Darcy says no nookie, no boom chicky wow, and grow a playoff beard if you can, because we need to do this. We need to make a playoff push on. This is my quarterback. I've went on recent episodes and saying, turnovers and everything like that. I'm supporting him. This is my quarterback for this year. Hopefully he does well, so we can get some good draft capital for him. I'd like for Brad Holmes to trade him for at least a third round pick. Trying to produce and do this all at the same. If we could at least get a third round pick for him next year and then start the Hendon Hooker train. The last 4 games of the season, Green Bay is playing. Anthony's back. Look at that. The last 4 games of the season, Anthony played in the NFL. So, last 4 games of the season, we're playing the Denver Broncos, and then we have 2 divisional round, and then we go into Dallas. We're going to lose to Dallas. Okay, that's a loss. I think we beat Minnesota twice, seriously. But what is the warts, like John usually says? Do you want Matthews? And I asked Matt Derry this last week. Do you want Matthew Stafford to come back into Detroit in a playoff game? All the hoopla is going on. Matthew Stafford's back in town, and he beats us. Or who do you want to see in the playoffs? Talk about it, John, and we'll finish this off.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I leave, it's great. Thanks, everybody. Hope you check out All Lions. Just type in Detroit Lions SI. You can check out our daily coverage and inside analysis from Allen Park and covering the Lions. I think they rebound this week. They beat Denver. I think, obviously, the team is going to be motivated. This one's for Dan. He in no way wants his team unprepared to face Sean Payton. I mean, when the locker room and the coach says, look, if we don't play well, Sean Payton's coming in here to embarrass us. They're going to mind their P's and Q's, dot the I's, cross the T's. I think they play well. They silence the critics for a week, and then you have the ultimate game. Potentially this week, you could secure a playoff spot. If certain things happen, there's a lot of possibilities. But if you win and certain things happen, Lions could clinch the playoffs by the end of this week. So let's hope for that. I hope the Lions play motivated and clean up their act a little bit at home, primetime. Guys, remember, after 4 o'clock, as of late, Jared Goff is I think 5-0, approaching 6-0 if he gets this win. So he does play well in primetime. So you hope the opportunity comes for the Lions. I see this football team getting to the postseason, hosting a home playoff game. And who do I want? Obviously, I think that I want what's best for interest. And what an interweb of stories you would have if Goff faces his old coach who traded him for the current quarterback of the Rams. I think that you recognize that the stories that can be told are tremendous. So I want to see it. I want to see, actually, to be honest, if it plays out, I want to see the Lions with a 5-point lead, 4-point lead, and Matthew Stafford has the ball with 1 minute and 58 seconds. Give him 2 timeouts. Let's see if he can march and let's see if the loud crowd at Ford Field, does he zing the football to the young, talented wide receiver they got there? Does he make the play at Ford Field? Or does Jared Goff make the play to rub it into his old coach? Obviously, that game would be tremendous in terms of storylines. But I think if you want, an opportunity to ensure a win, I think if you play the Vikings, I agree. They have a bad quarterback situation, and your quarterback situation is way better. So I see the Lions rebounding. I think the panic will subside, but I do think that if they don't clean up their warts, which are the turnovers and the mistakes, the clear mistakes that they're making, then it could be a situation in which you lose in front of that home crowd. But I definitely would love to see the Rams. That would be fantastic. I think everybody on earth would be paying attention, definitely with Goff and his old coach, Stafford coming back to Ford Field, Dan Campbell trying to win his first playoff game. So I think it would be very, very special. So I think the Lions do rebound and get the W this week and start turning things around in the last month of the season.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you. Anthony, what do you want to see in the playoffs and why?
Man, I was trying to fix my audio here, man. For some reason I can't. Hold on.
That's fine. That's fine. Well, who do you want to see in the playoffs? Talk about it, and we'll finish this sucker up.
I agree with John. I think the Ram game, based off of the Stafford Goff story right there, McVay, Brad Holmes, his new team versus his old team. I think there's storylines to go with all of these potential matchups. Seattle as well. I think this is a team right now, even though Seattle and the Seahawks and Rams are kind of like, the Rams are pretty much ascending right now, even though they lost to Baltimore this past weekend. Seattle's been playing bad as of late, ever since I believe that Cincinnati game a few weeks ago. But there's become a very robust amount of hate, I think, in this town towards Seattle. So you're talking about Dan Campbell versus Pete Carroll. Can Dan Campbell finally get over the hump against Pete Carroll and beat him? Can we beat Seattle, period, especially here? The Rams game, of course. And I think the Green Bay game, just based off of the division, I don't want to see Minnesota. That's one thing. I don't really want the easy way out. I don't want to see us versus Josh Dobbs or us versus Jared Hall or anybody like that. I want to see a good football game. So I think either the Rams would be it, Seattle, and then, like I said, also Green Bay. Can you imagine us playing Green Bay at home in a playoff game? Just no Brett Favre, Sterling Sharp, or nothing like that. So we don't want to see any of that. But, yeah, I think the Green Bay would be huge, too.
Anthony, who do you want to see in the playoffs? Can you hear me now? Can you hear us now? Stop stealing your neighbor's internet. All right, we're going to end the show. Thank you, Anthony, if you could hear me. Thank you for coming on. This has been quite the show. It was pretty good. It was really good, actually. Thank you for everybody. Please subscribe to the Detroit Lions News. Let's go, Lions.
Do your best. Let's go. Lions on 3. 1, 2, 3. Lions.